Good morning, everyone. I am so happy to be back here. I feel like it's been a while, and I am always welcomed and loved in this community, and I appreciate that. I was thinking about that today. I think this is my 5th year, and it's awesome. It's like my second home, and I really appreciate that. Happy October. It is so wonderful to be here in this soft October morning. Our topic for this month is enthusiasm, and I couldn't think of a better thing to talk about today. It is one of the most awesome powers we have as divine children of God. I want you to know that with me right now with this classic affirmation. I'm going to say it first, so listen. I am alive, awake, alert, and enthusiastic. Would you say it with me? I am alive, awake, alert, and enthusiastic. Whew, thank you. The great minister and positive thinker, Dr. Norman Vincent Peale, wrote, "Enthusiasm is one of the greatest words in the English language." The word enthusiasm is derived from 2 Greek words, en, and theos, meaning God, the Greek word for God, which can be translated the God inside or full of God. Now, if feeling full of God feels a little much for this early in the day, I understand. But one of my teachers last week in class told us that when the word God kind of triggers stuff for you, we can feel free to substitute other words like joy or peace or love. So I tried on that definition for enthusiasm. Enthusiasm means full of love. My enthusiasm is a conduit of God's love. And suddenly it just seemed a little easier for me to understand, because throughout my life I've been so fortunate to have work that I loved. From working in the theater to being with the circus to fundraising and seeing all the good that all that enthusiasm brings to the world, it's brought so many joys. Unity co-founder Charles Fillmore calls enthusiasm zeal, which is a slightly more old-fashioned term, and counts it as one of our 12 powers, those faculties that are born in each one of us to govern our lives in spirit. Now, Charles was born way back in 1894, and one of his most famous quotes, offered at age 94, when he was still working every day at Unity Village, he said, "I fairly sizzle with zeal and spring forth to do a mighty work that ought to be done by me." Wow. To do things that ought to be done by me. Now, that sure sounds like something I love to do. Something that I'm really, really good at. Something that feels natural and true and effortless for me, and that makes me happy when I do it. Mr. Fillmore gets really poetic when he talks about zeal. He says, "Zeal incites the winds, the tides, and the storm," and I love this one, "spurs the ant to great exertion." That's a great visual. To be without zeal is to be without a zest for living. Zeal and enthusiasm incite glorious achievement in every aim and ideal that the mind conceives. Now, that's a great reminder. When God puts an aim or an ideal into our heart, especially one that brings joy, rest assured that is ours to claim. God never puts a desire in our hearts by mistake. And when we have a desire in our hearts, that's the very first step for enthusiasm. We all have zeal. It's like God's love. It's available to everyone, the sane and the crazy. And that's where our power of wisdom must come hand in hand with enthusiasm. Just like when Jesus dispatched the 12 disciples out into the world, he encouraged them to partner up, to come together to bring their individual strengths to make them more successful in their work in the world. A spiritual being with human experience, we are blessed with the choice and the wisdom to direct our enthusiasm wisely. Now, Mr. Fillmore cautions us not to let our sizzling zeal run away with us. He says, take time to be holy. Taking time to be holy is simply taking time out to get still and go within to prayer and meditation. Committing time every day to go and seek out the wisdom to keep our enthusiasm headed in the right direction. When we feel those waves of enthusiasm rolling through us, remember to take some of that for yourself first, like putting our oxygen mask on first in the airplane, as they tell us. before we rush out and do our job or go and volunteer somewhere. He says, turn a portion of your zeal to do God's will within you. He also offers a really unusual interpretation of enthusiasm, reminding us that when we have accumulated extraordinary enthusiasm in a particular field, we become a genius. He says Jesus was a genius. In his humanity, he developed extraordinary ability in spiritual wisdom and love and power. And while a lot of men told us about God, none were able to demonstrate the wisdom and power of God just as Jesus did. With his zeal in doing the will of God, he became a spiritual genius in human form. Some people find it a little surprising that the Fillmores were really kind of into reincarnation. Genius, he tells us, is the breaking forth of the accumulated achievements of a person in a field in which he's been enthusiastic for many incarnations. Like Mozart, who composed and played the organ brilliantly at age 4, or Shakespeare, who brought the world accumulated experience as a poet and a philosopher, or Albert Einstein, or Bill Gates, all conduits for God's love in the world. English philosopher Aldous Huxley said, the secret of genius is to carry the spirit of the child into old age, which means never losing our enthusiasm. And there's another great idea. When we want to remind ourselves about enthusiasm, we don't have to look much further than the nearest kid, do we? You know, way back in 1969, when Sesame Street started out on TV, all of us recognized that collective sound that the Muppets used to make when they came together. Yay! Remember that? That was so familiar to me. I knew exactly what they were talking about. That's that noise that we make when we want to encourage toddlers. And we can certainly use that to encourage ourselves as well. We are enthusiastic, and we cheer for them and clap for them with every little step and wholeheartedly affirm, yay. Now, the Bible uses a lot of different words for enthusiasm, words like ardor and wholeheartedness and eager. When we're eager, I think we're enthusiastic about our service to God and to others. 2 Corinthians says, I have an eager willingness to finish the work of faith that we've begun. Be eager to do what is good. And remember to go within and refuel every day so God can maintain our enthusiasm to overcome difficulties. People full of God and full of love, eager to do good, create a better world, and have a better life individually. In a survey of over 9,000 employees, one company found that enthusiasm not only predicted general life satisfaction, but also predicted work satisfaction and whether or not a person viewed their work as a calling, that strong urge toward a particular way of life or a career. You know, I was always a little resistant to that word about having a calling on my personal journey as a minister. I certainly never had one of those blinded by the light moments like Saul did on the road to Damascus, though I've heard lots of other ministers talk about their own dramatic epiphanies. If I ever sensed that I had a calling to this work, it's sort of like when you call a kitten out from under the couch and you say, come on, Becca, come on, you can do this. Come on, you can come out. But you know, even when we are filled with God and love, it can be challenging to even want to show our enthusiasm in what can seem like a pretty cynical world. One psychologist called enthusiasm a form of social courage. A lot of times it feels safer to criticize than to praise. We want to make fun. It's sort of easy. You know, people are easy marks sometimes when they have affection for unusual things like Barry Manilow or bluegrass music, you know. Both things I really love. But when we show enthusiasm, it means that we openly do what others may be reluctant to do and to own up to. We're the kind of folks that like to take on any task with a positive attitude. Now, one of my assistants used to come in my office just about every day, and the first words out of her mouth were, Becca, we have a problem. Well, You know, I loved her, and I loved her honesty and her forthrightness, and I appreciated her cutting right to the chase, but that sentence never ended with, and here's what I think we might do about it. No, that was always my part of the conversation. But when we have enthusiasm for our work and our lives, we're more inclined to see a problem as a doorway into a solution. A problem doesn't mean lie down before we even start. It's just an awareness that we need to pray about and get creative and make a wise and purposeful action to figure it out. Now, I'll be the first to admit that sometimes my enthusiasm can run away with me. Sometimes I'm in a church meeting and a project comes in and I'm like, I'll do it. I'll chair the committee. I'll do it. And then I start home and I start fretting. And those of you who are familiar with the Winnie the Pooh stories, I go from full-on Tigger, joyous and enthusiastic, right over into Eeyore mind. Oh no, why did I do that? It's so scary. So what are people going to say? What if I just mess it up? And I just have to stop and take a breath and remember that something in me raised my hand for a reason. That something about that project resonated with me and fired my passion. Wayne Dyer says that passion is a feeling that tells you this is the right thing to do. Nothing is going to stand in your way. And it doesn't matter what anybody else says. This feeling is so good, it's not going to be ignored. Trust your enthusiasm. Let your fear go and let God guide you. I saw an article in Psychology Today this past week that challenged me, saying, is too much enthusiasm a bad thing? Well, taking on a new opportunity with enthusiasm really has a lot of advantages. One, it gives us an opportunity for pleasure because it kicks up our endorphins, gives us a little healthy buzz. It promotes optimism, which in this day and time is something that is a perfect antidote for whatever ails us. It helps us to live in the moment, so we're able to appreciate and participate in the present. And it gives us an opportunity to savor our good fortune so that in less fortunate times, we can recall a great moment where we took this opportunity. So is there a downside to enthusiasm? Well, you know, sometimes if we get too gung-ho, we can risk getting disappointed. But the reality is that any situation might not turn out exactly as we hoped for. We may be disappointed, but will we be any less disappointed if we were less enthusiastic? Disappointment is a yucky feeling, but we all face it, and even though we wish we could avoid it, we can't. So don't let fear get in your way of grabbing that opportunity. So how do we get on with that best use of our awesome power of enthusiasm today? Well, while we may not all be ready to man the barricades with the flag, we can do one small thing every day to improve the world. A donation to someone that's in need, or giving time to the shelter or the food pantry, or just sharing a smile in the checkout line or pumping your gas. When we focus on giving what we can, everything seems to be a little more possible. And we find lots of like-minded people to do it with us, just like right here in the New Thought Spiritual Center. As Margaret Mead said so famously, never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens will change the world. Indeed, it is the only thing that ever has. So how do we get started? Well, we have to choose to live enthusiastically. I'm going to charge all of us today to wake up tomorrow morning and slap a grin on your face. Fake it till you make it if you can't wake up with that smile. Find something in every day to look forward to and then get busy being grateful for it. Count your blessings, all those little things that add up during the day, that hot shower, that cup of coffee. Choose your joy for the day and say, thank you, God. Use your imagination to see yourself having a great mood today. Even if there's a really awful task that's waiting for you in a couple of hours, we can choose to think about how happy and grateful we're going to be when it's finished. So how can we motivate ourselves toward enthusiasm? Well, here's a few really practical steps to take home. Get moving. Moving our bodies kicks up those endorphins we talked about that encourage creativity and positive feelings. Before any important meeting or task we take on, take a little quick walk outside and breathe in the air. I have to do that a lot when I'm composing my talks. I call it taking the sermon for a walk. I go out and walk around the park, and it really helps. I always come back re-inspired. I don't know why. Don't forget to think about music. Music. Slap on those headphones or your earbuds and turn it up. Whether it's Hello Dolly or Harlem Gospel Choir or the Hallelujah Chorus, go for it and feel music lift your heart. When in doubt, you can always make that Sesame Street sound. Yay! And that's exactly it. Just laugh and smile because enthusiasm is so contagious. Harvard Research Center reported that 15% of a person's success in life is determined by knowledge, compared to 85% being determined by attitude. Our attitude is way more important than our aptitude. Sure, we can't generate enthusiasm just by talking about it, but sometimes we can open up ourselves up to God's truth and let God work in us and through us for good. Always conduits for God's love. Be proud of whatever you are called to do. And don't forget to be still. Remember to turn within and bring forward the peace and the wisdom that is ours. That way we can have confidence and calm and enthusiasm in any situation. Theologian Howard Thurman reminds us, don't ask yourself what the world needs. Ask yourself what makes you come alive. And then go out and do that. Because what the world needs is people who have come alive. This day, we are alive, awake, alert, and enthusiastic. And so it is. Amen. Thank you, guys. Wow. Thank you.